Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Sunday, July 28th, 2024 in the space and time continuum. Again, our dog Tucker was losing his mind upstairs. I don't know if you heard him barking at nothing. He's very good at sensing when there's nothing going on at the door or in the front yard. He lets us know. Missed you last week. I was in the Cape Cod, with our friends. Actually, the friend that I mentioned on the show quite a lot. I still haven't asked him if I can say his name, so I'm not going to. But yeah, we were together when all of this stuff happened. Wondering if there's anything to talk about over the last 2 weeks. So the last time I spoke at you was 2 weeks ago. It was the day after the assassination attempt on Trump. Wow. That seems like a whole different election cycle. I mean, that's old news now. He did get a bump in the polls a little bit from it. He reached an all-time high of 40% approval rating. He has since gone back down. And last time we were talking about the fact that the Republicans were going to have a unity convention. Did they? No, they didn't. They had Hulk Hogan rip his shirt off. They had Kid Rock do some 15-minute long rap. It was, and then Trump's big speech that normally that's your big opportunity, right? Especially this time for Trump, he could have used it as a big opportunity, but he is incapable. So we had arrived at the Cape. We were watching it with our friends, and we had to turn it off. I mean, we're very, very curious. Even though we were on vacation trying to relax, couldn't help it, right? And my friend was like, hey, are we going to watch this? And I'm like, yeah, we have to. And he went on and on. I think he went for more than 100 minutes. It was the longest acceptance speech in history. And it was boring as all stick in your favorite expletive here. It was just stupid. I mean, it was like he was at a party and he was just sitting in a chair going, oh, yeah, and Kid Rock is here. He wanted to be here. He did great. Where is he? Yeah, Kid Rock. So did a great job. And then how was the Hulkster? Yeah, the Hulkster wanted to be here. I said that. Yeah, sure. No Republican dignitaries, no, except actually Nikki Haley. So here's how funny this is. And by the way, I have a long list of things, and what I'm trying to do in this show is point out things I haven't yet. I've failed so far, but point out things that you may not have heard. Like, we're not going to talk about J.D. Vance having sex with a couch, for instance. You can go find that, but I'm not going to spend time talking about that because you probably already heard about it. You probably already heard about him saying that the country's run by childless cat ladies, and that Jennifer Aniston got on him about that, and then he called her disgusting in reaction. So, yeah, he's doing great, right? We'll talk a little bit about Vance. Right now, Nikki Haley, the last moment, goes to the convention, endorses Trump. 3 days later, what is it? Friday, Saturday? 3 days later, Biden drops out, and now we have Kamala Harris running as the president. I don't know if you heard about this. Nikki Haley, there's a PAC it was called Haley Voters for Biden. Now it's called Haley Voters for Harris. And Nikki Haley's trying to sue them. She's threatening to sue them. I don't think she can. I don't think she's going to find a lawyer to do it because it's just stupid. She's trying to get them to cease and desist. And they're telling her, no, F off. We're all done with you. These are Nikki Haley supporters. These are people who voted for Nikki Haley, telling Nikki Haley to go F herself. This just points out again, I have thought ever since Nikki Haley came on the stage, wow, she could do so much, but she's just so dumb. Just a dumb person with absolutely no political instinct. Saying all those horrible things about Trump, which were all true, but then endorsing him and then demanding to come to the convention to do a speech to endorse him. And then immediately after, the whole thing explodes. And now her voters are even more energized for the new Democratic candidate than for the old Democratic candidate. They are not at all fired up for the Republican candidate, even though they're all Republicans. I imagine a lot of them will no longer be Republicans. And they were pulling for Nikki Haley in the Republican primaries. So that's how much they were Republicans. The Republicans, being the idiots that they are now, the Republican Party diminished down to nothing but Trump's base. Any Republican with a brain has left the party. So what do? They bring in Trump. They make Trump their candidate, and they lose all of the Nikki Haley supporters. And now the Nikki Haley supporters are even more excited for Kamala Harris than they were for Joe Biden. Let's see, this would be a good time. Okay, you've heard me talk about the 13 keys to the White House. Alan Lichtman, we listen to him instead of polling. There are new polls that, and Kamala Harris is doing better and better in all the polling going on. The polls are still inaccurate. Alan Lichtman, here's what he has to say now that Kamala Harris has become the nominee.
So to sum it up, 3 keys certainly down already, 4 keys undecided, although they lean in various ways. To count out the Democrats, 3 of the 4 keys that are not fully decided, third party, social unrest, and the 2 foreign/military keys. 3 of those would have to fall to predict the Democrats' defeat, which is why I've said a lot has to go wrong. And I'm not saying Harris wins yet. I am not made a final prediction, but I will soon, in less than a month or so, by the end of the Democratic convention.
That Harris wins is if this model right now, if this update holds true, if all these up in the air keys hold true, then she will win. But
right, but I don't buy, as you know, I don't do hypotheticals.
Right. And since our last update in June with Harris coming in, they've lost 1 key.
They've lost 1 key, but the third party key and the social unrest key are looking a little more secure for the Democrats than they were, say, a month or 2 ago.
So a lot would have to go wrong for the Democrats to lose this election. The 1 key that they have lost is the incumbent, because Biden is the current incumbent. So they lose that key. But they would have to lose a lot. A lot would have to go wrong. You heard him say it. That's where the 13 keys to the White House are. He's going to make his final prediction in about a month, a little less than a month after the convention. And I'm telling you, he's going to make his prediction that Kamala Harris wins the election. I think he knows that, but he is very careful with making his predictions. The excitement. So I was watching some things just from this morning. It's Sunday, June 28th. I watched Face the Nation. Well, I don't know what show, one of the Sunday morning shows. And there was a woman who said door knocking. Before Biden dropped out, there were a lot of people that were saying, yeah, I'm knocking on doors, and there are a lot of people who are really reluctant, and they're saying, I might not vote for president this time. And now, over the last only 1 week, the whole atmosphere has changed. The door knockers are saying the excitement is palpable. That word's being used over and over. People are very excited to vote for Kamala Harris. And they're asking a lot of questions, trying to get caught up, trying to get to know her better, Kamala herself is doing an absolute kick-ass stump speech that I'm sure you've heard. I'll sum it up, though, in case you haven't. She's basically saying, I was a prosecutor. I have prosecuted people who have abused women sexually. I've gone after banks for fraud. I've gone, and then, of course, she's making the correlation that Trump is guilty of all of those things. And then she says, so take my word that I know Trump's type. And also, there was another instance where she was doing a speech where the crowd started, she said, we will not go back, or we are not going back. And the crowd started chanting it. Those kind of organic moments where you let the crowd make up your slogan are priceless in campaigns. That's how it happened with Barack Obama doing the Yes, We Can. He didn't even want to say it. Michelle went after him saying, that's a great thing. You should say that. So he did the speech. Can we blah, blah, blah? Yes, we can. Can we blah, blah, blah? Yes, we can. Crowd started chanting, yes, we can. It became the slogan. I mean, it was huge. She's got a few different slogan possibilities here. We choose freedom being one of them. A big theme that she's going with. We choose freedom. We will not go back. And everybody's with her. Amazing excitement at her speeches that she's done quite a few. I believe she has 36 events in Florida this weekend. Florida, by the way. Here is a story from local news in Florida.
The sudden flood of volunteers in Florida now signing up to campaign for Vice President Kamala Harris. Capitol reporter Forrest Saunders with what it reveals about the presidential race here in the Sunshine State.
I think that the Republicans should be concerned.
That's Jennifer Griffith, Pinellas County Dems chair. Her operation overwhelmed by the amount of volunteer interest she's seeing, saying the infrastructure and positions to post them just aren't here yet.
The only thing I can attribute it to or liken it to would be as if Obama landed overnight kind of energy. I can't imagine anything else. And it just happened overnight.
The Harris campaign's Florida team detailing what they say are the biggest indicators of energy. More than 1,700 have signed up for phone banks. And since Sunday, more than 7,000 have offered to volunteer, which might be higher than any other state.
And other states are reporting this same type of thing. People wanting to get involved in the campaign. Now, you've heard me say 100 times, if you don't want to get involved, if you don't want to give money, or you can't give money, or you can't get involved, vote. If you vote, we win. Another slogan that she is repeating a lot. If all of us vote, we win, because the United States is overwhelmingly liberal and democratic, and losing more and more conservative support and energy and existence whatsoever, really. So a lot of states are saying, man, we can't even handle all the people who want to volunteer. So yeah, of course these people are going to vote, but they want to door knock. They want to do phone banking. They want to get involved. It's amazing. Almost 39,000 new voter registrations happened within, I think, 24 hours. After Kamala Harris started as, she wasn't even really the candidate yet. She still isn't going to be officially till the convention, but she does have enough delegates. She was able to get enough of the delegates to support her to win the nomination at the convention. She did the work. She got on the phone. She said, I want to earn this nomination. She already did within 24 hours. Now, I've heard there's over 100,000 new registrations, more than 60%. I can't remember the exact number, but almost 70%, I believe, somewhere in the 60s, are people under the age of 34. 18% of this 100,000 new registrations are 18-year-old voters, brand new voters. What have you been hearing on this show? Gen Z is exploding. They're showing up. They're getting involved. They're registering to vote. the likes of which we've never seen. Right? This is going to be a blowout. Now, we've got to keep working. Kamala herself is saying that she's the underdog, and this is going to be a really hard uphill battle. But man, everybody's here for it. She's here for it. Her energy is incredible. She's really improved since 2020. Now, I thought she did a pretty good job in 2020, but a lot of people are saying she didn't. I don't know. I didn't see evidence that she did a poor job in 2020. I thought the reason she dropped out so early is because there were talks being done already with the Biden campaign, because it was starting to look like Biden was going to be the guy, because America felt most comfortable with Biden beating Trump. They were correct. Biden, I still hold to my prediction that Biden would beat Donald Trump in 2024 by 10 million votes. I maintain that Kamala will beat him by 10 million votes. I'm starting to feel like that's a conservative estimate. The map is changing. So let's take a short break, and I'll come back. I'll talk about that, and I have some more information that's extremely interesting for you to hear that I don't think that you've heard. When we come back on A Satellite View. Satellite View, go to toddmikkelson.com, push the music link if you like the music that you're hearing here on the show. You can gain access to a lot of music that I've written over the years. So we're talking about the changing maps. We're talking about the possibility of Kamala winning the election. I heard on MSNBC, Steve Kornacki. It's just really unfortunate that they still stick with that BS. He's stuck in the 1990s with polling. He's talking about, I heard him say that the Sun Belt, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, Trump was doing better in because the Democrats are losing the black vote. And those states are more diverse than some of the other southern Sunbelt states. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous, Steve. You know, his little shtick he does on MSNBC, it doesn't work anymore. I don't know what his contract is, but I don't know, maybe give him a different, if he has to stay working at MSNBC, give him a different job. Just stop it with the polls. It's just ridiculous. One thing is, there was a Michigan poll, a state poll, and they were polling for Donald Trump. Support for Donald Trump. The black vote in Michigan polled at 0%, not 7%, 0%. Yet you have Steve Kornacki saying the Democrats are losing the black vote. It's just absolutely asinine. Ohio. So he picked J.D. Vance so that they could insure Ohio. And a lot of people are saying, well, Ohio's not even a swing state. So that was stupid because they already had Ohio. You've heard me say on this show, if you've been listening to the show, I think Biden would win Ohio. I even have a friend who's in a very high position in local politics, and who's also been extremely pessimistic over the years. That person told me that they think also Biden will win Ohio. And the reason is because of women's reproductive health care rights. Now, okay, so Now that J.D. Vance is in, now Biden or Harris has no chance of winning Ohio. Here's what they think of him in places like Ohio.
Does J.D. Vance help Trump in those states?
Not according to the favorable ratings. His favorable rating is below 30%. His unfavorable rating is up above 40%. That creates a net favorability rating of minus 16 points. He does worse in his home region at minus 16 points than he does in the average of all polls, which is a minus 5-point net favorability rating. So the people who know him best, the region that knows him best, they like him even less than America likes him. And of course, as you pointed out, again, in that kind intro, is he is historically unpopular for a VP nominee coming out of his first convention as the VP.
All right. So what were those states? This is polling in Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin. That's what they're saying. J.D. Vance appeals to those states? No. They hate him even more than the rest of the country because they know him more. And by the way, it seems like he's just somebody who really needed a lot of therapy starting when he was a kid. He had a hard upbringing. I'll give him that. He had a tough life. His mom has been, divorced many times. She was a drug addict. Hard living. But he was also a suburban kid in Cincinnati. He wasn't a hillbilly like he claims to be. When he was a kid, he at least told everybody, and he thought of himself as gay. He remained in touch with a friend of his, a transgender friend. Now he's the most anti-LGBTQ person possible. He changes his whole personality. He was the most against Trump. He called Trump America's Hitler. Now he's Trump's vice presidential running mate. So he's a mess. And by the way, can Trump drop him? No. Most states would not allow that. Can he replace Vance? No. He was supported by the delegates at their convention. You can't go against that just because you're like, oh, he's an idiot. I picked the wrong guy. Can I do it over? No, you can't. I mean, Trump's even saying, the Democrats made us spend all this money against Joe Biden, and now we have to start all over. We should get reimbursed for that. We should be reimbursed. The Democrats should be paying us back all the money we spent because we had a great campaign going against Sleepy Joe. And now we're against Lying Kamala. Again, with the names. Now he's just looking like an idiot, an old, angry man who fights like he's in the lunchroom in junior high. And one thing that's happening, too, that's changing. Whoever the attention is on, that's a bad thing unless it's positive attention. The issue was becoming Biden is too old. That's why Biden ended up dropping out, because the issue was focused on Biden, not on Trump. Even the media. Let's go back in time to June 22nd, 2024. That's only 5-6 weeks ago. Trump said the exact same thing he said yesterday about, you just vote, all my Christian friends. I'm not Christian. This is what he said yesterday. I'm not a Christian, but all my Christian friends vote, and then you won't have to vote in 4 years because we're going to fix it. Everything will be fine. Kind of sounds like he's putting a pillow over your face, right? Everything will be fine. So he said that you won't have to vote. Well, that's because he's not going to allow anyone to vote. He said that on June 22nd. Did you hear about that? No, you didn't, because the media paid no attention to it. He said it yesterday, and the media is talking about it. The focus is going on Trump for all the negative reasons. J.D. Vance is making it worse and worse for Trump, but Trump didn't even need J.D. Vance to make it bad for him. And Trump, he is energized by attention, even if it's negative. So he's loving it. And the unity thing, everyone said, okay, you got to try and be nicer. So after I got shot, I took a bullet for democracy. And they said it changed him. It didn't. It probably made me worse. I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to be nice. So he's doubling down on the thing that hurts him most. And now, though, Biden is not in the mix anymore. The only time we've heard Biden's name for the last week is basically praising him for being patriotic and stepping aside to let a better candidate step in. And now the focus is on Trump. Because they're not talking about Biden is too old. Now Trump is too old. They're not talking about Biden's cognitive issues. They're talking about Trump's cognitive issues. Now even the media is starting to finally to focus on Trump's threat to our democracy. So things are changing incredibly. Kamala Harris raised more than $200 million in less than a week for her campaign. That is insane. If people thought that she shouldn't inherit Biden's fundraising, kind of doesn't matter because she's raised about the same amount in 1 week that the Biden administration or campaign has raised in, what, a year? But she does inherit Biden's war chest. She does inherit it because she was on the ticket. If Gavin Newsom came in and was going to be the candidate, which, by the way, he says he's not going to. He said, I would never do that. If he did, he would have zero money. I don't know. Maybe he would have raised $200 million. I don't think so. Kamala, this is a magical moment. The planets have aligned. The universe is working on our side. Now, 2 weeks ago, everyone was scared because it felt like, oh, this assassination attempt is going to kind of make Trump a bit of a martyr. By the way, looks like nothing hit his ear because he no longer has his tampon on his ear that he had during the convention. By the way, listen to the last episode I did because I basically talked about Trump's going to come out with a big bandage on his ear. The only thing I was wrong about was that it was a tampon. It looked like a tampon or a maxi pad. Not a tampon. It looks like a maxi pad on his ear, not a bandage. Anyway, that was just so fake. And within a week, he started appearing with no bandage. There's not even a scratch on his ear. So I don't know what hit him, if anything. I've heard people say the bullet might have went close to his ear, and the whizzing sound is very powerful with a projectile like that. Might have ruptured the inside of his ear. That's what made him bleed. But that can also do a lot of damage, to your brain. Now, of course, we have no way of measuring that because he already had tons of damage done to his brain decades ago. So we wouldn't be able to tell. Anyway. Yeah, so the assassination, like I said, gave him a little bump. He had his all-time high of 40% approval rating. That's a huge problem for somebody who's a candidate for president. You can't break 40%? In my long list here, I'm doing pretty good. Oh, by the way, there are 3 million more women voters in the country than men voters. So their He-Man Hulk Hogan convention, that doesn't help get the women. I mean, by the way, the ratings for the convention were 40% lower than when John McCain was running for president. So you might hear Trump say, we got the biggest ratings ever. No, he's lying. They really got the lowest ratings ever for their convention. And by the way, their convention was boring as all hell. Well, no, hell's not boring. Hell sounds pretty exciting. So that's not a good boring as all hell doesn't work. Let's see what. Boring as all grass growing. Boring as all paint drying. And the whole He-Man thing of it, no intellectual conversations going on. And they're supposed to be winning back the suburban women vote. Educated suburban women is who they're trying to gain votes with. Yeah, not working. And now 3 million more women voters than men voters, and we have a woman running for president for the Democratic side. And, of course, women's reproductive health care rights. This is another thing Steve Kornacki on MSNBC never talks about. Again, the only polls that we should pay attention to are the election results. They're not polls, they're election results. But they tell the truth. Polls don't. Polls are consistently wrong. For decades now, they're consistently wrong. All of these special elections on the issue of women's health care rights, the Democrats have overperformed overwhelmingly. And that's going to happen in November. What else do we? Oh,
look, 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, anybody talking about this potential switch on the Democratic side, they thought that Harris, they didn't want Harris. They wanted anybody but Harris. And it was the same thinking in the Trump campaign. Now it's Harris. And you see the energy and you see the surge in the polls and all those elites got it completely wrong. How much did this take Trump's campaign off guard?
I think not the switching out, the switcheroo of Biden and Harris or Biden with Harris, but the blowing up of Kamala Harris. You know, being a Miami resident, I think in terms of hurricanes, and this looks like a tropical storm that found the right patch of warm water in the Gulf of Mexico and rapidly intensified into a hurricane. And what the Trump campaign is realizing is, okay, we have to batten down the hatches and we need to execute a new game plan and do it rather flawlessly because they are in a real tough fight now. And they weren't just, 6, 7, 8 days ago? I've lost track of the days at this point. But the reality is Kamala Harris poses a much graver threat and challenge to Donald Trump than Joe Biden did. And Donald Trump's campaign knows that.
And Donald Trump, it appears, knows it. I mean, your reporting is that her appeal, her cultural appeal specifically, right, is something that he can see, and that your sources are telling you that the campaign, if they do not get that, will underestimate it at their peril. Those are the words?
Those are the words. As has been said before, politics is downstream of culture. And one of the interesting things about Donald Trump, and a key to understanding his appeal and resilience in the electorate, is that Donald Trump was a cultural figure before he was a political one. Kamala Harris is a little different. She is a political figure, and she is on the cusp of becoming, if not is now, a cultural figure. My 16-year-old daughter, for instance, who could not give a hoot about politics, suddenly knows all of these facts about Kamala Harris through TikTok. Yeah. And that says something. She's breaking through to the other side.
His 16-year-old daughter, who doesn't give a hoot about politics, knows every detail about Kamala Harris. Young people are loving this. Talked earlier in the show about them signing up to vote, registering to vote. And you have Trump he's still focused on Biden. He's talking more about Biden than he is about Kamala Harris. You just heard that was Mark Caputo, by the way. Again, former Republican, now works at the Bulwark, made up of former Republicans, then they're totally against Trump. That was him saying that the Trump campaign has to change quickly. Are they? No, they're not. They're not at all. They don't know what to do. Trump is incapable. He's not going to listen to anybody. If they're saying, hey, you got to talk about Kamala Harris. She's your opponent now. And he's still just talking about Biden. You know, Biden's too old. Biden's cognitive thing. He can't even change his focus. It's just more attention on Trump and his cognitive disabilities. He's still talking about Hannibal Lecter. He's still talking about planes and sharks. He's still talking about all this weird stuff. Okay, here's the final thing I'm going to do. Who is Kamala going to pick for her vice presidential running mate? You hear a lot of talk about Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. He's the governor there. There are a lot of people mad at him because he supports school vouchers and charter schools. There are a lot of other people mad at him for his views on the Israeli and Gaza issue, which, by the way, Kamala is really hitting on a much better tone with young people on that subject than Biden was. My daughter, who is interested in politics, but has a lot of friends who are less interested in politics, and even some of her friends that are very interested in politics were saying that they weren't going to vote for president And I asked her, does this whole thing with Kamala Harris now being the candidate, does that change with your friends who said they weren't going to vote? And she said, oh, yes. Everyone's excited about it. Okay, vice presidential pick. Also, Josh Shapiro, I kind of felt like he came kind of like, hey, take it easy, man. He came out and he was saying, I need him to stop shit talking. I said it. But I'm quoting him. The country. And he was like yelling, and he was just kind of like, Josh, take it easy, all right? A little too eager, I think. And there is Andy Bashir. Great guy. And by the way, I really like Josh Shapiro. Don't get me wrong. Josh Shapiro did a great job winning the governorship in Pennsylvania. Andy Bashir, younger than the other guys. Really great messenger. He's Kentucky, which everyone thinks that we have no chance of. So that, and this is the other thing. People are talking about it like, I mean, the vice presidential pick has never made a big difference. The last time it did probably was in 1960, when Kennedy felt like he had to have somebody from a southern state, or actually not even a southern state, but Texas particularly. Had to win Texas, so he picked LBJ. They hated each other's guts. That's probably the last time that a vice presidential running mate had any impact on the election for the top of the ticket candidate. So trying to choose what state they're from, that has never panned out. I heard, I should have kept this clip for you. I'm not just making this up. This is studied by people who specialize in those things. And they have found vice presidential pick doesn't really make a big difference. Therefore, you need to pick who you get along with, who could be a good partner for you. Mark Kelly is an astronaut, an ex-astronaut and military guy. He's in Arizona. So they're saying, okay, well, would he help win Arizona? No, I don't think he would. And he doesn't have the personality that some other people do. The person that I have seen getting out on TV a lot before Kamala Harris was the candidate, he's been doing it a lot, probably the most accomplished governor in the country. And I've been seeing a lot of people who are very anti-Biden, like left-wing people who are really pissed about Biden being the candidate, who are now a lot happier that they've seen what's happened with Kamala Harris. And they love, one of them says it's his favorite governor in the whole country, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Tim Walz has been messaging just, I think, pitch perfect and getting a lot of attention. He comes off as even-keeled. He comes off as very sharp, but he's not afraid to say, he's the one who kind of touted, these people are just weird. And that's another thing that's sticking, that Kamala is using in her messaging. These people are weird. J.D. Vance is weird. What Donald Trump is saying is weird. Tim Walz started that a couple weeks ago on TV. Now, Tim Walz is 60 years old. Kamala's, for running for president, this is a ripe age to run for president. She's 59 years old. He is 60 years old. He has gotten amazing legislation through with a one-seat advantage in the Minnesota State Senate. Groundbreaking. Climate change, gun safety, women's health care protections, child care. The list is very long that the Democrats in the House and Senate, along with Governor Tim Walz, has passed into law in Minnesota. Very accomplished governor. He's a teacher. He's a veteran. He speaks pitch perfect about all of this stuff. He did an event with Kamala Harris at a Planned Parenthood place in Minnesota a couple months ago, and they clicked really, really well. He chose as his lieutenant governor running mate the first Native American lieutenant governor in the history of the United States. I know her really well. She's great. She's going to be a great governor when Tim Walz becomes Kamala's vice president. And that's my prediction. The first Native American woman to be a lieutenant governor is named Peggy Flanagan. Doesn't sound like a Native American name, but that is her name. She is incredible. I met her when I was a candidate. She was actually helping train candidates. She and I clicked really well. We started working then, even after I was no longer a candidate, on paid family and medical leave. Oh, another thing that got passed into law in Minnesota over this last session. Paid family and medical leave. Something I have been personally working on with a group of small business owners and other groups in Minnesota for 12 years. Finally got passed. And Peggy Flanagan, our soon-to-be Minnesota governor, was there the whole time and was a huge part of helping it get passed. So that's my prediction. Kamala is supposed to make her choice before August 7th, which is a little more than a week from now, maybe 10 days from now. I don't know when she's going to do it. I kind of think she's going to do it sooner rather than later. I don't think she's going to wait that long. And my prediction is that it's going to end up being Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor. All right. We are out of here. Again, I went overtime on this second segment here. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Wow, it's going to be a lot easier to keep each other sane now. I still think Biden would beat Trump, but man, I was starting to get more and more nervous every time he spoke into a microphone. No cognitive decline, but just, wow, he's really aging and it's really accelerating. Of course, he's got the toughest job in the world, but he's doing a great job of it. As the plan goes, he's going to stay president until January 20th of 2025, and then he will hand it off to Kamala Harris. When I first heard it, we were just starting our whale watch on Cape Cod on Sunday morning. By the way, I'm going to post some amazing video from that on social media. But speaking of social media, tons of earned social media by Kamala Harris, stuff you don't have to pay for. She's exploding, and the young people are loving it. The young people are a big part of it. The meme-ification of Kamala is what's being talked about a lot. It's great. It's amazing. But yeah, Joe was making me more and more nervous. But when I first heard, it was right when we were starting. We were on this boat going out into the Atlantic Ocean to look for whales, and we found whales, by the way. That's the video I'm going to post. But I felt sick. But then I started thinking, and I had wrapped my head around Kamala being the candidate a few weeks ago. But at that moment, she wasn't the candidate yet. It was just that Joe Biden dropped out. Then shortly after, he did endorse Kamala. And I started to think, I feel like a huge weight is being lifted off my shoulders. Not that it was not that the whole thing was on my shoulders. I think everybody was feeling like, oh, God, that's a relief. And then Kamala came out. Her wheels were spinning before she hit the road. So she hits the road. And, it's incredible. So, very happy. I'm feeling great. I think you're feeling better, too. It's going to be a lot easier to keep each other sane now in this crazy... Like the fever has broken. Am I right? It was getting harder and harder and harder. We were feeling more and more scared and sick and crazy. And all of a sudden the fever broke. The sun came out. The clouds parted. And the whole thing just feels like, the whole world feels different. It feels like this whole American tragedy of Trumpism is done. Now we got to keep working, and you got to make sure and vote, but then we're in the clear. I don't feel like I had to try and make you feel better for this show. A lot of people get back to me and say, oh man, you make me feel a little better in all this craziness. Well, this week, I don't think you needed it. But I hope I've pointed out some things that you didn't know. There are things still going on that it's just hard to find. And that's what I'll be doing. I'll be, of course, helping us all, stick together, keep each other sane. But I will try and inform you of things that I think you may not have heard. Now it just feels like most of it's going to be positive. So it's going to be a fun summer. It was a cruel summer. And now it's a fun summer. Okay, I'm singing over the music, right? My apologies for my trying to sing like Bananarama doesn't work well for me. I get away with some hack imitations, like impersonations, but not of Bananarama. So my apologies. All right, you've been listening to a satellite view. Well, Heidi's going to say all that right behind me here. Thank you so much for listening. Wow, we're going to have a blast for the rest of this summer. We're 100 days out from Election Day. 3 months. It's going to be great. So now we'll all stick together and have a great, fun summer. We'll speak at you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.